Hey guys, Shelby Mathis here. I'm one of the founders of Anderson, and if you're on my YouTube channel, hopefully you're subscribed. If you're not, you should be. And I want to talk about asset protection for real estate investors, and I'm just going to have a conversation with you about it because a couple of occurrences have happened in the last couple of months with clients that I want to share with you, and they really illustrate the point. Like right now, it's really important that you own nothing but control things. What we've seen repeatedly is folks being attacked because they own property. And if they come to us after that attack is actually going on, it's too late. There's not a lot you can do because we have voidable transaction rules and fraudulent conveyance rules that prevent you from taking an asset away from a known creditor. What's really important is to set these things up at the inception of your investing. And I get this question, I actually literally just had this conversation of somebody who says, but I don't have any equity in my house. I'm not worried about it. I have a mortgage. And I said, that's great. You have a property with a mortgage. A creditor does not care that there's a mortgage on the property. They're going to go after you. If you own that property in your name, that is a link directly into your personal world, including garnishing your personal accounts and your wages and things that you own, going after any sort of your investments or any of your other assets, including your home. Depends on your state as to how much of a homestead you have, but if you're outside of Texas or Florida, you're gonna have limitations. And so it's not about the asset itself when you're investing in real estate. A lot of times it's the liability that we want to isolate. So we want to block that property off, and we teach you how to do that in our tax and asset protection workshop by using trusts and LLCs. In fact, I really urge you to click the link to the tax and asset protection workshop. It's absolutely free. We teach them about once a week. You can go in there and you can learn all the ins and outs of how these work. Now, going back to what I was saying is you want to own nothing but control everything. You want to have a living trust for your estate plan. You want to have limited liability entities for your risk assets and anonymity. You want to have anonymous ownership of LLCs for your safe assets, like your brokerage account and things like that. You want to remove it from your personal realm so that somebody cannot reach it. And let me give you a prime example. So I had a client in California get sued. And she was with a bunch of other defendants of somebody who was trying to shake them down. And what's the first thing they did is they started doing asset searches and they started asking questions of her attorney. It looks like she doesn't have any assets. And they're trying to get confirmation or somebody to say, no, of course she has a bunch of stuff. They dismissed her, boom, not even $1 out of her pocket. They just said, well, you're released because they did not want to have empty pockets in that case. The punchline, she owned nothing, but she controlled much. That was a prime example. I'll give you another one. So I have a client that owns large multifamily and manages large multifamily apartment buildings. So a client or one of the tenants there had an invitee come in and step on a rusty nail. We all know this is a bunch of bogus stuff, right? But the insurance company steps in because she had a policy on the property. The management company gets sued. The insurance company was just like, hey, well, of course we'll just go ahead and settle. They got out of it, which is great. She's going to walk away and nothing out of pocket, but that left the management company. There's always going to be a management company. If it's you as the management company, you're going to end up having to pay both of those sides. Well, here's the problem. The insurance policy was pretty much exhausted. They literally gave this guy close to 7 figures. So the insurance company was like, now we're out. You're on your own. Thank God we had set it up where she had the management company separate. And this is the beautiful part. We were able to do a walkaway. We sent her to a bankruptcy attorney who said, I don't even need to bankrupt it. The liability is in the management company. There's nothing in that management company. The way we set things up at Anderson is we like to use different LLCs and isolate that liability. It worked to a T in this particular case. A very negative situation that could have gotten way out of hand was able to be nipped in the bud simply because of the way she was structured. Now, if you're interested in keeping your affairs out of the public record, if you're interested in making sure that you have a strong asset protection plan where we're minimizing your risk assets and protecting your assets from those risk assets, and even more importantly, from you. Because believe it or not, when we're driving down that road, there's no way to protect you from you. Your liability is your liability. If you hit a car and you cause an accident, or one of your kids, God forbid, causes serious injury to somebody else driving a car, you're responsible. And we need to make sure that you don't have a whole bunch of assets in your name that somebody can take, garnish, and use to pay off some big lawsuit that they just puffery up, because God knows that some of these juries are just, it's like lottery winners right now. Some of it's crazy what's going on in these courtrooms. And you do not want to be in that situation where you're sitting there saying, I'm actually a really good person. I'm not a mean, greedy landlord, or I'm not a mean, greedy employer who's, now you're being accused of all sorts of discrimination against your employees, or you're being accused of, for an independent contractor, that really should have been an employee and you misclassified him and you now owe a whole bunch of money to the state and to the feds and to that employee. You don't want to be sitting there in front of a jury of your peers when you realize, wait a second, their perception is that anybody who has a business, anybody who has real estate is rich, and you owe somebody else that money. You don't want to be in that situation. You want to avoid that situation. And how do we avoid it? By making sure nobody targets you in the first place. I have a very good friend who owns an insurance agency, and she said something that was really critical to me at one point. She goes, if you're ever in a car accident, don't say you're an attorney. And then she started telling me all the stories about all of her doctor clients that would get into a car accident and they immediately say, don't worry, I'm a doctor. And then she said, oh my gosh, you may as well just write the lawsuit at that point, because immediately they think they have a deep pocket. You do not want to be perceived as having a deep pocket. You want to keep your affairs private. Now, a lot of you guys are saying, well, wait a second. There's the Corporate Transparency Act. I know you have to disclose beneficial ownership. What about all that? Well, what about it? That's a non-public database similar to your tax return. Somebody can't just go look up your tax return. They can't go look up FinCEN and see that report, even if it survives constitutional scrutiny, which as of right now is up to be seen. Like, I think it's very ripe to be struck down in its entirety, but it's not something that's a public record. What's a public record is things that are in the states, things that are on titles of those properties. And again, at our tax and asset protection workshop, we go into a deep dive into these strategies so you can learn exactly how they work. So by all means, it's free. Click on that link. Or if you'd like a strategy session where somebody will actually put together a blueprint for you as to what a proper asset protection plan looks like, you can absolutely do so. We've been doing this for over 25 years. We've been doing this with great success. Our clients don't get sued, very seldomly get audited. It's way below what's typical, and that is because of the way that we structure them, the way that we do tax mitigation, and our clients don't find their estates wrapped up for years in the estate courts, in probate courts, because of the way we set it up. Own nothing, control everything.